Hey everyone, I'm Scott Brandley.
And I'm Alicia Coakley. Every member of the church has a story to share, one that can instill faith, invite growth, and inspire others.
On today's episode, we're going to hear about how one remarkable woman, despite witnessing a fatal attack and a life of tragedy, has been shown by the Lord that happiness is always a choice. Welcome to Latter-day Lights. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Latter-day Lights. We're so glad that you're here with us today, and we have an incredible story to share with you. And we actually have two guests. We have Cami Harward and Michele Green, and Cami is Michelle's daughter, and she's going to be helping her share her story today. So welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us. I'm glad that my mom gets to share her story. It's a remarkable story. Her life is remarkable. So I'm glad that she gets to share it with you.
Mm-hmm. It really is. As soon as I, read your email when you emailed me, Cami, and then we talked on the phone a little bit about it, I was just like, oh my gosh. I think I told all my kids. I told my husband. I didn't tell Scott. He doesn't know very much at all about it. But just really, that's the only word that you can use to describe it. Just remarkable, the things that you've gone through and the lessons that you've learned and the light that you're sharing. It really truly is an honor to have you on, Michele. So we're super excited and very much looking forward to not just, it's not even just one story. It's like a life of stories, right? But they all build on each other and have really, really helped with your testimony and your outlook and everything like that. So we're excited to get into that. But before we do, why don't we just take a second and just kind of tell us a little bit about you. We'll start with Michele, if that's okay. You want to kind of tell us a little bit about you, and then Cami, you can tell us too.
Well, my name is Michele Green, and I am living with Cami right now, which is wonderful. Aww. Because I need help. And I'm already, I can't believe I'm 90 years old and still living. I was hoping my husband would call me and take me, but it's not ready.
Aww.
And I'm French.
Okay.
And that's about all.
I think there's more to that story.
Probably a little more. Oh, okay. Cami, what about you?
So I'll give a little bit more introduction about her. So she's lived with me. We live in Logan, Utah. She's lived with me for about 2 years, and we're glad that she's with us. And
I'm glad.
But my mom's story has always been one that I found strength in my own life, and it's a story that I think everybody should hear. Yeah. Mm. So my mom, she was born in Saigon, Vietnam.
Oh, I could have said that. I didn't know.
Well, that's why I'm introducing you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so she was born in Saigon, Vietnam, and people get really confused at that because they look at her and they don't see that she looks Asian.
Yeah.
So they're kind of confused. And so just a really quick, funny story about that is we were, it was
cemetery.
Yeah, at the Orem City Cemetery on Memorial Day. And my mom loves going to the soldiers' graves, the crosses that they put up. And they had the American Legion soldiers. And I went with her and they were talking to her and they said, we hear an accent. And she says, where are you from? And she says, well, I was born in Vietnam. And before she could say, but actually I'm French, they stopped and they're like, you were born in Vietnam? And she says, yes. And they're like, you've Americanized very well.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, thank you. And then they just kept asking her questions. They never gave her a chance to tell them that she was French.
Right.
And then they just kept saying, and you were born in Vietnam. She's like, yes. And then they looked at me and they're like, you were born in Vietnam? I'm like, I wasn't born in Vietnam. I'm American. So finally, she just let it go and things. And then my youngest son comes walking over, who my youngest son is Asian. And they look and they're like, who is this? And he's like, this is my grandson. And I said, this is my son. And the confusion on their face was, you were born in Vietnam. They're like, did it skip a generation? Like, yeah. So it's very funny. So people get very confused when they say she was born in Vietnam, but
and she's French, but she's born in Vietnam. So how does that work?
So her father, go ahead, Mom.
No, you do a better job.
Her father, there was a French colony that lived there, and my grandfather worked for the French government. The French government there.
Okay, gotcha.
And so her village that she lived in was mostly French. There was like a mixed North Vietnamese, half Vietnamese French and French. Yeah.
Wow.
So my biggest blessing, or one of my biggest blessings, is I am named after her parents. So Camille is my grandfather's name, and Suzanne is my middle name, and that's my grandmother's name. And that's been such a blessing to be able to carry their names. And I've had some wonderful experiences with that, some very spiritual experiences and things. But my mom just celebrated her 90th birthday. So that was very fun. We got to a big party with about 250 people coming and celebrating. She lived so she is the oldest surviving member of her family. She's the third oldest of a family of 8 children. She has 2 older siblings and
2 sisters and 1 brother.
Wow.
3 sisters.
Okay. I do.
Yeah. But
we don't have actually 3 sisters.
One that you didn't meet. You haven't met yet. So
she's dead. Yeah.
Oh.
So she lived in Vietnam until she was 14, and 3 years later they moved to France, her family. And when she was 17, her family, they were introduced to missionaries from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And she was baptized 3 months later and moved to Salt Lake City so that she could be closer to the church. And she lived with one of the families of one of the missionaries who taught their family. She lived with them. They became her host family. And the first night that she came to the States, she met my dad, and didn't
like him.
Did not like him. They didn't like each other, but somehow they fixed that and got married years later in the Salt Lake Temple, and they had 9 children. I'm 6 of 9, and
I wanted 12.
You wanted 12. You wanted a whole dozen.
Yeah.
But why not? Wow. And, that's phenomenal.
Yeah. I don't know. I have 5, and I don't know how she did mine. So
I have 3, and that's enough for me. Wow.
My husband was single.
He was an only child.
And he wanted 36 children.
Oh, well, then 9's a good compromise.
That's where polygamy comes into play. Yep.
Yeah.
That's right. You'd have to get 3 wives with 12 kids each. So there you go.
My mom has served 2 missions
really?
As a single senior sister missionary. She served in Fiji. And
I don't know why they sent me to Fiji, because I said I wanted to go to France, or Vietnam or Nauvoo, and he sent to Fiji.
Well, it's Fiji.
I didn't even know Fiji existed.
It's better than maybe being sent to like North Dakota.
Right.
That would have been let down.
But
Nothing against North Dakota.
I had a wonderful mission.
Yes.
Wow.
That's good.
We always said we were we all wanted to go and pick her up on her mission. And she says, no, save your money, because the Fiji you think I'm at, I'm not. She says, you have to go to a resort for that. Fiji is not a resort.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
it was good. It was good.
She was 72 when she served a mission in Fiji.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I was old.
And then when she came home, she served as a service missionary for about 4 years. And
wow.
That was it.
Yeah. And like I said, she has 9 children. She has 32 grandchildren, 19 great grandchildren, and one on the way that will be born in August, and one great grandchild.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome.
She's had lots of different callings, from primary teacher.
Primary is my best calling.
It's true. Everybody knows her as Grandma Green.
Yeah.
Oh, that is wow. So cool.
She's lived a life that most people can't comprehend or believe.
I'm crazy. That's it.
And you're so funny. Seriously, we haven't even started the show hardly at all. I'm sitting here cracking up.
I know. Every day must be an adventure with her around, right, Cammie?
Oh, for
It's
sure.
true. Yeah. So, yeah.
Wow.
So there you go. That's my mom in a nutshell.
Oh, I love it. That is awesome.
So,
all right. Well, I'm super excited to hear all of the story, and I know Scott's really excited to hear it too, and so are our listeners. So we're going to turn the time over to you. So Michele, do you want to kind of take us back to like the very beginning? Like, what was your, earliest childhood memories like?
Well, I was born in Vietnam, in Saigon, and it was a wonderful life. I had, how many brothers and sisters? I had 3 sisters. There were 7 children, and my mother was expecting the 8th one. So, and I was told very often that my parents had a marriage made in heaven. And I truly believe that, because my father just worshiped some way my mother, and he treated her like a queen. And it was interesting that we never celebrated our birthday, but we always celebrated my mother's birthday.
Really?
We didn't care about our birthday. We just knew that we celebrated my mother's birthday.
Wow.
She was the queen. And Papa just loved her, and I believe that. Well, my father and mother had a farm, and we had pigs, we had horses, we had rabbits, we had chicken, all kinds. So we lived on, and we had goats, and we lived off the farm. And so my father taught us how to kill a chicken, and I couldn't do that. I couldn't slice the throat of the chicken, and so I couldn't do it. So I had my brother do it for me until he got tired. And he said, it's your responsibility to do what Dad wants you to do. So I took the chicken, and usually you had to put him kind of to sleep, but then you cut his throat. And that I didn't do. So I took the chicken and knocked him with a 2x4. And the chicken was kind of knocked out. I took the chicken and I showed my mother that I had killed the chicken. And she said, yeah, but you have to clean it. So I said, I can't do that. I says, well, then you have to since you killed a chicken, you put it in the fridge and tell your dad, and you know the consequences. The consequences, if you didn't do what my dad, the responsibilities that your dad gave you, you were sent to bed without any supper.
Mm.
So when my dad came,
well, so she forgot that after she had she had killed the chicken, beat it, with the 2x4, they had to pluck it.
Yeah, so I put him in hot water, and I plucked the chicken, wrapped him, and put him in the fridge. And then my father came and asked me if I had done my work. And my mother came to my rescue and said, well, she killed a chicken, but you have to help her to clean it. Mm-hmm. So I was afraid to get the consequences, which was not bad. You were sent to bed without supper, but my brother always brought me a sandwich, so it was fine. My father went to open the fridge where the chicken was, and the chicken jumped out. He had just been knocked out. So my father looked at the chicken, and he looked at me and he said, this chicken deserved to live. So you take care of it, because he was completely naked. He only had just a few feathers.
So he'd been knocked out, boiled, and plucked,
right,
and refrigerated.
So he became my pet, and I kept him in bed.
Did you name him?
I called him Caroline. That was my pet. Anyway, that's my.
And she said that it never grew feathers back except for on its elbows, like the
oh my gosh! How long did it live for?
I don't know, because the Japanese came and took our house and everything. So the chicken stayed with the Japanese. I hope they treated him well, because I did after what I did to him. They treated him very well.
Tried to make up for it.
Yes. And like I say, I called him Caroline.
Oh.
So that's my chicken story.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, that's so funny.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And it was a wonderful life in Saigon with my parents and my brothers and sisters. We had a wonderful life until we were under the occupation of the Japanese. 1940?
1939.
39, when Saigon was taken by the Japanese. And it was a fun life, because you had to be very, very careful of what you did. Sometimes if you put your V, that meant victory, and you would be sometimes stopped and put into concentration camp.
Wow.
And my father ended up in concentration camp for about 3 months, because he tried to save a lady from being trampled by a Japanese soldier with his horse.
Oh my gosh!
With that, he ended up in a concentration camp. And when he came home, my mother ran to him, and he said to her, I remember that, he said to my mother, "Don't touch me." And because he had been beaten, that his whole body was black and blue.
Oh,
wow.
So my mother took my father in the bedroom and took care of him. And so it was not a fun time during the Japanese occupation, but we survived that. And when the Japanese lost the war, we were so elated. So we hardly could wait for them to leave. But we didn't know that the worst was yet to come, because the Japanese opened the door of the prison and everything, and our community, which was a cité héros where we lived, was attacked. And I heard after that there was at least more than 400 people killed that day. And
wow.
Her village went from a village of about 800 down to about 300 in just a matter of hours.
And
so this was in September of 1945.
Okay. How old were you, Michele?
I was 11.
11 years old. Okay.
11 years old. And so they came to our home and knocked the doors. There was hundreds of them out, and they were trying to go break our door. And my grandfather and my father put furniture against the doors, but they kept pushing it. So finally, my grandfather and father told them, if we open the door, the man will go with you, but if you leave, unless you leave the woman and the children.
Mm-hmm.
And they agreed. And then my father opened the door, and they came in and took all the men and took the woman.
Mm.
So there was a woman group and a men group. And for some reason, my sister Nicole, my older sister, and myself were put with the men group. I don't know why. And so we were pushed into some little boats, and they took us, and we walked through the jungle until we ended up in an area where they started to massacre everybody.
Oh.
My sister Nicole was the first one, and then my grandfather was killed, and many men was killed. And I thought, well, my turn is going to come, and pretty soon they took all the men, and I never saw them again. There was a few men. Some of them were killed with machete. So I was able to see that. So I guess that's what they're going to do to me. But they didn't. I was the only one who survived from that group.
Oh my gosh.
And they and before my father was taken away, he said, Michele, never, never forget to pray. My father was a very, very religious man. And he said to me, Michele, never forget to pray. And I was not ready to pray at that time because I could see so many people being killed.
Mm-hmm.
And they took parents, my uncle, and many men away. And we never found their body. And so I was all by myself from that group. And then they took me along some villages who kept beating me while I was walking through the villages until we got to another villages where I saw my mother. And my mother's group was there, so I ran to her, and she asked me where my father was, my uncle and my sister, and I told them they were dead. And so she said, well, she prepared us that it's going to happen to us also. And she said, but we'll see Papa again. So we just waited in a little room, neighbors and all my brothers and sisters. And then soon they came and took all the women. And I never saw my mother again, but found out how she was killed, which was horrible.
Oh.
And they put us in a kind of pagoda. Can you say that? Is that a pagoda?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they put all the kids in there except for the boys. They took all the boys out. And then we heard gunfire, and we all put ourselves on the floor. And then the door opened, and a giant of a man with a kind of red hair looked at us and said, "Are you the Jugan children?" And we said, "Yes." He said, "Well, come with us." So we went with him, and then they put us into some army truck, and then they drove us to Saigon, where my uncles were waiting for us. So after that, I lived with my uncle and my aunt, her children, which was not a very pretty time because my uncle was not very nice. But one thing about my uncle, he used to beat all his children. And one day we were all in the elevator. He owned a hotel, and we loved to play in the elevators. And so we were all in the elevators, and my grandfather stopped the elevator, and he slapped everybody but me. And I realized that my uncle never hit me, but he hit everybody but me. And I tried so hard to put my face in front of me so he would slap me too, but he never did. But he slapped everybody. So it was not a fun time to live with my uncle, but I lived with him till I was 17. And then that's when I joined the church. The missionary came to our home and taught us this gospel, which I did not want to hear. So every time the missionary would come, I would sneak into the bedroom so I would not listen to them. I was a Catholic, and I would die a Catholic. So every time the missionary was there, I would end up in my bedroom until one day I came home from work, and I tried to be very quiet to go to my bedroom, but apparently my aunt heard me and said, "Michele, please come in bed in the living room and listen to the missionaries." And reluctantly I went, and I tried to interrupt the missionaries so often that, but the missionaries were very nice. They just ignored me and just kept talking and giving out the message until I heard a voice that said, "Listen." And I completely ignored it. And then the missionary kept going, and missionary once time again, the voice came and said, "Listen." And I just did not listen. And the third time, the voice came very strong, "Listen." And I thought everybody had heard it. Mm-hmm. Everybody was listening to the missionaries. And the missionary so I decided to listen. And the missionary were talking about the plan of salvation, which gave me the answer that I've been praying for so long, that I would see my parents again. Mm-hmm. Because after my parents died, I went to the priest that lived around the corner of our home. There was a church there, and I asked the priest, I said, "Where is my parents?" And the priest told me they never received the last rite because he says that they are in purgatory. And purgatory to me was this, to me, it was a terrible place. It was not a happy place. And my parents died so hard. They couldn't be in purgatory. They couldn't. And so I left him really, really upset. And then when I heard those voices telling me to listen, the missionary were telling me the plan of salvation, that I would be able to see my parents, I would see able to my brothers, I would see able to see my sister. That was the answer to my prayer, because I always remember my father telling me to always pray. And I kept praying, not like I pray now, but just a prayer that I memorized. in the cat. And I guess Heavenly Father hears and listens to all the prayers. And I received the answer that I needed, that I would be able to see my parents. And so I can hardly wait for my husband to call me. What's the matter with him? Maybe he's busy doing, I don't know what he's doing right now. He loved to do research on Jews. So he must be teaching some Jews up there and ignoring me. Walk. Anyway.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I hope someday when I'm 90 right now. So I hope I don't last much longer so that I can go and see. I'm looking forward to see my parents, my brothers and sisters. My husband would be last. And I love him. I mean, that doesn't mean that I don't love him. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. But I will see my brother was my best friend. We were always doing things together. So I'm really looking forward to see him and see my brothers and sisters, my brother and my mother and father, and my little sister who was born after my mother was killed.
It was from a special revelation that was given to my mom's aunt who took them in, that she was sick one day and in and out of consciousness and in and out of sleeping. And my grandmother visited her and had a conversation with her. And my aunt, we called her Mammy. And she said, I noticed that you're not pregnant anymore. And she says, no, I had my baby. And she says, oh, what did you have? And she said, I had a beautiful little girl. And so it was by special revelation that they know that she has a
little sister,
a sister that she's never met. And my aunt in that same dream asked her, did you suffer? And she said, just for a moment. I suffered just for a moment. She says, but I'm so happy now. Wow. And
the gospel has really helped me. When I joined, when I asked to be baptized, I had to have I was 17, and I had to have my uncle's permission. Mm-hmm. Every time I asked him for something, he always said no. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. I wanted to be a stewardess, and he said no. I wanted to be a nurse, and he said no. There was a place behind where we lived where people took care of children, and they wanted somebody, hire somebody. So I asked my uncle if I could go and work there. He said no. So everything I asked my uncle, he said no. I was so mad at him. But then one day I came and asked him, I want to be baptized. And I was waiting for a no. And he said, what took you so long?
Wow.
And I looked at him and said, what? He said, what took you so long? So I was baptized and joined the church.
So was your uncle and aunt's family baptized too, or just you?
My cousin was baptized. I was baptized. My sister was baptized, although she left the church. She's a born Christian. My brother was baptized, and he's active. My other sister also is active. So all of us, the children that lived, all of them are active, except for my younger sister. She's a born-again Christian.
Wow.
So she's okay. She's a good person and very, very religious. So,
Yeah.
And everything went fine. And then when I moved after after I was baptized, I asked my uncle if I could go to America, and he said yes, which surprised me. And
Wow.
so I went to the place where you work paper, you have to have your passport and all that to get,
Mm-hmm.
and they refused it because I was born in Vietnam. And
Oh.
so my uncle, I came back home, and I told my uncle that they didn't want to let me go to America. And he said, why? He said, because I was born in Vietnam. So he took me, and we went back to that place, and he had a paper that told that the French government had written what the children went through, that they were
Wow.
orphan and blah, 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 blah. And so he showed that to them, and I was quickly accepted to go to America
Wow.
because of that paper.
Did you go by yourself, or did you like any of your siblings go with you, or
By
all by
myself.
yourself?
Yeah.
At 17.
Wow.
Yeah, I was 17. But
Oh my
when I
gosh.
got to America, I missed my family so much. I wanted to go back to France.
Yeah.
But my uncle, I wrote to my uncle, it says, I want to come back, Papi. Can you, bring me back? And he says, certainly not. You are stuck there and you will live there. And so I did. And that was the best thing I ever did to
Wow.
be. And now I'm an American. I'm
Well,
French.
so take us. You get to America. You mentioned that you met your husband the first day and you didn't like him. How did that all go?
Well, all the French missionary and all the members would get together once in a while, and we had games or some skit and things like that. And my husband was always a master of ceremony.
Mm.
And I thought he was a show off, and he was. And when he met, so when he finished whatever he was doing, he was very funny. He was very funny. And my dream of the man that I wanted to marry was going to be very tall, very wavy dark hair, like my dad, smoke a pipe. That was a long time ago. And have a leg shorter than the other one, because my uncle had a leg that was shorter than the other one. And the way he walked, I just loved it. So I wanted my husband to have the same walk.
Wow.
Some swagger.
Yeah.
And instead, my husband was very short, was I think an inch and a half taller than I was,
Oh.
completely bald, a professor, didn't smoke a pipe.
Didn't have a limp.
And we ended up, he was going to ask my girlfriend for a date, and we were called to sing a quartet. And we went into the room to practice, and he said, the alto didn't show up. So he asked me to come and sing the alto. And I said, I don't sing. I says, well, let's practice and see. So I practiced. And when we finished practice, I told him, I says, John, I cannot sing. I says, well, just try. And if you don't sing, if you get off, you don't off key, I'll squeeze your hand. I said, okay. So as soon as we started singing, he squeezed my hand. I sang bass with him. So he asked me out to go out for a date.
Wow.
So that's history now. We got married about 3 years after.
Okay.
And we had 9 children. The second one wasn't my second one, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I had Scott, Jeffrey, Evan, Alan, Carrie, who was by my daughter, Cammy, Nicole, 3 girls. I had 4 boys, 3 girls, and then 2 boys, Brent and Richard.
Mm.
And Jeffrey I was about 7 months pregnant with her when I started to go into labor. And so it was a Sunday, and my husband was at church. So they called my husband, and my husband brought a friend, Paul Gardner, and Paul gave me a blessing. And he said that in the blessing, he said that the child would live. Because the doctor, when I called the doctor, he started to tell me, since it was so early in the pregnancy, that the child might not make it. Mm-hmm. But in the blessing, it says that he would live. Wow. So when I went to the hospital, the doctor prepared me for a dead child. And I kept telling them, no, it's going to be okay. And the doctor just couldn't, say, no, we just wanted to prepare that you will have. He's so early. Well, Jeffrey was born. He was 2 pounds.
This was in 1958.
1958.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so real dangerous then.
Yeah. 3.5 months early.
And he lived. He was wonderful. I had to cut the diaper in half in order to put him, and they were still too big.
Wow.
He lived. He lived till he was 18, and he was on the way to work when I heard where he was work at Roy Rogers restaurant. In those days, there was a Roy Rogers. And the Roy Rogers called me and said, where's Jeffrey? He's not here yet. I says, well, he left. He should be there anytime. And then right after I hung the phone, my husband say, you need to come and sit down. I says, why? He says, because there was 2 police officers in the room, and they were coming to tell me that Jeffrey had been killed. That a young boy of 14 had taken his dad's car and was driving and speeding. The police was after him to stop him, but he didn't stop at the stop sign and ran into Jeff. And so that was hard, because Jeffrey lives so many. He almost died of
drowning.
Huh?
Drowning.
Huh?
He almost drowned when he was 2.
Oh yeah, he almost drowned when he was 2. He almost burned when he was 5. He almost died of
8 glass.
Yeah, he ate his.
Holy cow!
His brother was feeding him glass. Crazy kids.
He got measles when he was.
He got measles that he was very, very bad.
That he almost died from.
He survived a lot of things, and then he ended up being killed by a car. I could not understand that.
Like I said, so there was many times throughout Jeff's life that he should not have lived through. When he was 17, they thought that he had leukemia.
And then almost he was playing football on Sunday, and they called me, say that Jeffrey was hurt very bad, that he had broken his neck, and they were taking him to the hospital. And so I went, and Jeffrey kept saying, Mom, I'm sorry I played on Sunday. I'm sorry I played on Sunday. But he didn't have a broken neck, and he survived that. He killed by a car accident was ridiculous. But so after he died, before the funeral, my husband had all of us kneel down and pray. And so all the children knelt down and had to say a prayer, what they were thankful for, and about Jeff. And when I was the last one, my husband was the first one, and all the 8 kids were in between. And when I was waiting to pray. I said, what am I going to pray about? I said, I lost a son. He was killed. So what can I pray about? And I just struggled and struggled until a small voice said, you had him for 18 years. I need him now. So I was fine. So I was able to pray that I knew where Jeffrey was. I knew he was happy and that Heavenly Father needed him more than I needed him. So it was a good experience for me. Sad, but good. So Jeffrey was fine. He's busy preparing people because I had a dream about him and he said, Mom, I'm preparing people. So I know he's doing well. There's so many wonderful spiritual experience that I experience. It's amazing. So I'm so grateful for the gospel. It's my life. Anyway, and then
about 4 years after, almost to the day, was when Dad had his stroke.
Oh yeah. Well, that's not fun. I don't want to talk about that. My husband had a stroke for 21 years. When he is a man that could speak 7 languages, but just ended up only speaking English, very, stuttering and everything. But he was able to learn to speak English.
He was only 54 when he had his stroke, which is the age that I am right now.
And I don't.
Really?
Yeah.
He kept saying, I had the stroke for you. What does that mean? He had a stroke for me. What a dork.
Wow.
But he lived 21 years and then he died of cancer. And talking about cancer, my son Evan, when he was, how old was he when he had the cancer? He was about 30, that he had a cancer and got operation after operation for so many cancer. And on Valentine's Day, he passed away. So I lost boys that are waiting for me on the other side.
Wow.
But life is not, what do I say? I know terrible things happen to everybody. I know it's not just me. I mean, things happen, but you have to have I'm thinking in French right now.
Positive.
A positive outlook and a positive attitude to live a good life. And because you know that when I die, I'll see my 2 sons, I'll see my husband, I'll see my parents, I'll see my brother and sister. What a joy, what a happy thoughts that is,
Mm-hmm.
And the neat thing is that my mom was able to soon after she joined the church, she was speaking with some friends. She was in France, her and her siblings, and her friends had found out that they had been baptized and were getting angry at them, like, you went against what you were taught. Your parents would never have joined the church and would never have been baptized. They never would have left the Catholic Church. And just before she started to argue, just a small voice told her to not argue, that they had accepted the gospel.
Wow.
And
That's awesome.
Small voices don't argue; they have accepted it. So
wow.
I was fine,
and
I didn't argue with them.
And then they were able, when all of her siblings came to the States, they were able to do all the temple work for her family.
Yeah.
And seal all of them together and seal their sister that they've never met. Baby girl Jugan is what, the native
that was done for her work to be sealed to my parents. That's wonderful about the gospel. There's always something positive, No
Yeah.
matter how, with what you go, you rely on the gospel and you just see something positive. That's what the gospel has always done with me. I mean, with the challenges that I've had, and I'm sure we'll have, I hope not. I hope I'm 90, so maybe tomorrow I'll go up there or down there. I don't know. It's there's something positive to think about. If you don't, you'll be miserable all your life. If I'm negative of all the things that I experienced, I saw my older sister really kill so badly. I mean, if I told you the way she was killed, I mean, I still see it, but if I dwell on it, I would be sick. I would be sick.
It's amazing you can still be positive, and
it is. You have to be.
And
that's what the gospel is giving you. There's other things better to look for. I'm looking forward to go and see my loved one, and that's a positive attitude. I mean, I talked to when I lost Jeffrey. I had a friend that also lost a son, and so I went to visit her and talk to her, and she could not believe that I was not crying, and because she was in tears and miserable, and I kept telling her, but your son is okay. It's okay. It's okay. No, he should be with me. He should be with me. I says, okay, he's not with me. Jeffrey is not with me, but they are in a better place. They are happy, and they are needed up there. But she couldn't accept that, and she has been miserable to have lost a son, and she died just a few days before Jeffrey was killed. So she never got over it. Wow. And I'm fine. I mean, I miss him. I wish I could have seen him live, be married, have children, and all that. But he's needed up there. He's busy. Right. Father needed him. So
anyway. She's always told us what a difference between her parents' death, parents and siblings, to the death of my brothers and her husband, my dad. She says, it's weird to say sweet, when you talk about death, but she says the pain and agony of not knowing where my parents were, and then to be told that they're in purgatory that is forever suffering, a place they can never get out of, that they're just always in pain. They're always suffering. And then to learn of the plan of salvation. But in comparison with my brother's, death she says, you use the word sweet. She says, because I knew right where they were. I knew exactly. I didn't have to go through that hardship of questioning where they were. And death is never easy. And we've talked about that, these last couple months. Death is not easy. And it's not that someone dies. It's like, I know where they are. It's great.
Yeah. With everything that I witness, I would be, if I keep thinking about it, I mean, it was not pretty. That's for sure. Because that day, at least 400 people die. And watching all that, I would be, how do you say that in French? Miserable, misérable.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but, God definitely had a bigger plan for you, Michele.
Definitely. And I'm glad that the missionary came to our home and finally made me listen to them.
Yeah.
Not letting, I mean, I had a cat, his name His name was Zazu. And every time the missionary would talk, I would throw the cat to them. So, to get them to be distracted,
Yeah.
But they just threw the cat back at me and kept going in their mission. I kept doing that until this came, please listen, so the Lord, my Heavenly Father had other plans for me.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for that.
So, Michele, will you tell us a little bit about the sign that's hanging up behind you?
Oh, what does it say? Happiness is a choice.
Mm-hmm. Where did that come from?
Well, we don't know. Well, my brother, my son, Brent, went to Vietnam, and he went to see my house. And that sign was hanging at my house. How it got there, we don't know. I feel like my mother put it there,
Mm-hmm.
and because happiness is a choice. And but why it was there, we don't know. So my son Brent brought it back and give it to us.
Well, he took a picture. So he went to Vietnam on a business trip, and leading up to the trip, he reached out to his host, and shared a little bit of my mom's story, and asked if he could, maybe find some of the places that and kind of take him around. And so his host says, let me do some research and see what I can find. And so when they went, he was able to find the school that she attended, find the church that she attended. Inside the church, there was a brick.
Oh yeah, that story.
So my mom said,
my mom had my aunt and my mother had two. Each of them had a daughter about the same age, and they both came down with meningitis. And so they went to the hospital, and but it ended up that they couldn't take care of my sister because my father didn't have enough money to pay the hospital. So they sent my sister home and kept my cousin at the hospital. And so my mother was not a very religious person, but she took care of my sister with a meningitis and prayed to, she said, well, the Catholics, she prayed to Saint Teresa, which this is my middle name, to please help my sister, take care of my sister. And my mother took care of her, and she kept praying and praying to Saint Therese. And my sister lived, but my cousin, who was in the hospital, died.
Wow.
And aunt really resented that my sister, who was not in the hospital, had the care that my cousin received at the hospital was died, but my sister lived. So my aunt never forgave that.
That's where that brick came from that my brother saw. It was a prayer brick, and it's still there. So this was 2013 when he went. Yeah. But in this church, that prayer brick is still there.
This is Saint Therese.
Yeah. And so he got to see a bunch of things, and then he was taken to the street or the area where my mom's house and village would be, and then said, this roundabout, knowing, doing the research that I found, this is where your mom's house should have been. And they, of course, it's now covered with standing where all of that is a apartment complex. And above the door, which is this sign, was a billboard sign, and that said happiness is a choice. And like I said, our all the other billboard signs, all the other signs around there were all in Vietnamese. And this is the only one that was in English. And so it was located above the opening of this apartment complex. And so my brother, he sent us pictures of everything and then sent us a picture of that. And so I did all this, and I sent pictures out to all of my siblings and things for a Christmas present. But he says, if anything that embodies and explains my mom and her parents or her siblings that survived their lives, it's that statement that happiness is a choice. I mean, you meet each of them, and they're just incredible people that just have such a wonderful outlook on life that, seeing and going through some horrible tragedies in their life, that they can look forward and say, yeah, I'm happy. And that's one of the biggest lessons. My mom has always taught us, each of our kids, to, she always has said the statement of bear your burden well. And so I went through cancer 5 years ago. And that was always on my mind of, I need to bear this well. My mom taught me that, bear my burden well. And, but when I asked her several years ago, I'm like, you talking to her, I'm like, you could look through your life and say, Mike, I was dealt a rough hand. My life was kind of crap. And I'm like, and you would have every right to be bitter, to be angry, and to be resentful. And I said, and yet you look on your life with joy and you can be happy about it. And her response is one that I won't ever forget. She says, because I have been blessed. I've been blessed more than I have, than any heartache that I've gone through.
That's true.
That because of the Savior and because of my relationship with God, I can find joy I can continue to find joy in everything. And so that's been such a great lesson to me. And so, yeah.
I mean, you can have a miserable life, that's for sure. But who wants to be miserable? Who wants to be miserable?
Yeah.
I don't.
It's not fun. It gives us wrinkles. Exactly. We don't need that.
So I just, I'm happy.
Wow.
Well, I'm thinking about, you had 18 years with your one son, with Jeff.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you had all these other kids. Think of all the blessings that have come into your life from your other children that you've had, and just all the cool things the good things that have happened in your life.
Yeah, I'm so blessed that I have 8 children now still alive. And I told them if anybody dies before I do, I give them all for adoption. I'm not keeping them. Anyway, so, I mean, all my kids, all 8 of them are just wonderful. They're just good kids. So I can't complain. I've been blessed. And all my 8 kids now are just wonderful. Wow. I couldn't ask for better. They always think of me. They always says, what can I do? And Cammy right there, I got so sick, I had to move in with her. And now I don't have to do anything. I just sit there and everything. What do you need, Grandma? What do you need, Mom? I got, what else what else do you want me to do?
Yeah.
And the only thing I want to do is for my husband to call me, but he's busy teaching the Jews.
Yeah.
He's doing.
That's what he did his research on, was the French Jews.
Wow.
Okay.
But,
wow.
Can I share your story of when she had it taking care of my dad? So my dad, when he had his stroke.
Oh yeah.
The stroke changes people. It changes their personality.
Mhm.
They're very
He was
angry.
not the same.
Yeah. And so I was 10 when he had his stroke. And so my dad was very athletic. He knew all of these things, but after his stroke, he was very aggressive. He was very mean. And my mom, there was still 7 of us at home, still 7 kids at home from 16 down to 4. That all of a sudden my mom, as a full-time mom,
Had to go to work.
Had to go to work full-time. And so and my dad needed a lot of caring for. He was in the hospital for 9 months after he had his stroke. And the doctors had told him that whatever he was going to learn, whatever he got back after a year was all he was going to have. And all he could say was one and morning was the only words that he could say. And he couldn't talk. And so my mom refused to let someone who knew 7 languages fluently. He was a genius. He spoke 7 languages fluently and perfectly, as if he was native from those countries. People would hear him speak French. So he served a French mission in Geneva, Switzerland. So he knew French.
Wow.
And
his French was better than mine.
Yeah.
Yes. They asked me, several people asked me, "Oh, you speak French so well." And I said, "Well, I'm French." "Oh, okay." And then another person asked me the same thing. And I said, "I'm French." "Oh, okay." So 3 people asked me that. So finally it says, "I learned French from my husband." "Oh, that's why you speak so well." That was an insult. He did.
Wow.
So after his stroke, my mom refused to, reduce him to 2 words. So she labeled the whole house, and we were not allowed to pass him anything at the dinner table unless he asked for it.
Wow.
Which was very, very hard because he would just point and 1. But anyway, so, growing up with him was hard. I don't have very many memories of him before his stroke. And I remember about 6 months from the time that he got out of the hospital, for about 6 months, we would go to church. And even though he couldn't speak, we would sing the hymns in sacrament meeting, and he could sing perfectly. And I was so angry for a long time because I thought he was faking it. I'm like, you're putting us through all of this. Like you're a liar. And then that only lasted about 6 months, and then he lost that as well. But my mom, had to take care of all of us, including her husband, who for most of his life needed full-time care for 21 years. And so one day she had just had it. She just like, I can't do this anymore. He was, like I said, he would get aggressive. Fun. He would get aggressive sometimes. And she grabbed her keys and left. It's like, I can't do this anymore.
I was going to leave.
And she drove and drove and drove, and she was gone for hours. And she finally...
Something told me to return.
Yeah, she said she had heard a voice that she needed to go back. And so she came and said she parked in the driveway and was pleading with Heavenly Father of, please help me. And she just yelled. She's like, do you even hear my prayers? Do you even hear me? And for some reason, she turned on the radio, and the song playing on the radio was A Child's Prayer.
Aww.
With the words saying, Heavenly Father, are you really there? Do you hear and answer every child's prayer? And then the second verse came on. And, that tells, pray, he is there, speak, he is listening, Mm-hmm. You are his child. His love surrounds you.
Yeah.
He hears your prayers.
He loves your love.
So she just all of a sudden got her answer that I know you. I'm here for you. I've never left you.
So I had to go back.
She had to go back.
You're like, dang it.
Yes, I did.
But I took care of him, and he was a wonderful husband. But the stroke has changed him. But it was okay. It was okay. And he ended up dying of cancer. So it was not the stroke that killed him, but it was a cancer that killed him.
Yeah.
He's in a better place.
Yeah, when you do get to meet him, he's going to be the guy you remember, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So my mom is an avid studier of scriptures and loves the scriptures, and she has always found these verses that resonate with her. That
read in the Doctrine and Covenant.
Yeah.
I'll say I have it there in the Doctrine and Covenants in it's 122 verse 79. 79. And it says, if thou shalt be cast in the pit or in the hands of murderers, and the sentence of death passed upon thee, if thou be cast into the deep, if the billowing surge conspire against thee, if fierce winds become thine enemy, if the heavens gather blackness, and the element combine the edge of to hedge up the way, and above all, if the very jaws of hell shall gap open the mouth wide after thee, know thou, my son or my daughter, that all these things shall give thee experience and shall be for thy good. The Son of Man has descended below them all. Art thou greater than he? Therefore, hold on thy way. Fear not what man can do, for God shall be with you forever and ever. I read this in the Doctrine and Covenants. I mean, it has been such a big help to me. Mm-hmm. You know, everything is so true. It is so true that God shall be with you forever. And he is. He is always with me. And even if I have negative thoughts, I think he's slapping me. No more of that.
Maybe he's got to take a spiritual 2x4 to you like you did to that chicken. I get it sometimes.
Somebody told me, how can you do that to a chicken? Could have been better to cut his throat. I hope he's somebody told me that he's going to wait for me when I go into the, what you call it, the gate.
Yeah, he'll be there. Caroline will be there.
It'll be like that chicken on Moana that just
hey
follows her around.
That poor chicken. Oh. His name is Caroline, so he's okay. He has a name, so he'll be fine. So that's about all I have on my thing. I have wonderful children. I had a wonderful husband, and I had a wonderful job. I work at UVU, and that helped quite a bit because the people I work with were just wonderful. Because I had to go every 2 or 3 hours. I had to go home to take care of my husband and come back to work. And sometimes I would sleep at work. And my boss would come by and could see me sleeping. So he would say, everybody quiet, Michele is asleep. Aww. So he was a boss.
Wow.
Very, very nice boss. So I couldn't ask for a better job. And I worked there for 16 years. And then I had to quit to take care of her, until my husband died. So wow. I had a good life. I had a good life. I mean, sometime I would have given up, but no. I just, life goes on. If you want to be miserable, but I don't want to be miserable. I'm a weird person.
You're an inspiration. That's
Yeah,
what
if
you
that's
are.
the case, I want to be weird.
I know. I want to be weird too.
I want to be weird like you.
I want to be just like Grandma Green.
That's what my primary children, I love to teach primary. And they all call me Grandma Green. Matter of fact, when they released me from primary, they didn't release me as Sister Michele Green. They released me as Sister Grandma Green.
Oh,
that's cute.
I hope it's okay. I don't know.
I'm sure it is.
Grandma Green. That was funny. Anyway, it was fun. It was fun. I love primary.
Oh. Man, Michele, just wow. I don't think I've ever cried or laughed so much on an episode before. You've just taken me on this emotional roller coaster ride, and I have loved every single second of it. You know, I am so in awe of you. And I have to say, I know with Mother's Day, yeah, being nigh, that I'm watching this relationship between you and your daughter, and it is just warming my heart so much to see the love that you two have for each other, and to know that despite all of the things that you went through as a child, that you have become this incredible, remarkable mother, to not only your kiddos, but to, you think about the people that you served, whether it was in the church, in primary, or if it was on your missions, plural. And I just think, when you said that Heavenly Father gave you Jeffrey for 18 years and that he needed him over there, I think the reason why you're here for as long as you've been here is because so many people still need you here. And so you just did too good of a job. And Heavenly Father's like, nah, she's good. We're going to keep her in that calling for a little bit longer.
I don't know. I just want my husband to call me, but he's busy with the Jews up there.
But you know what? I think you've been pretty busy here too. So
yeah,
that could be.
I'm well taken care of right now with my daughter and her daughter.
She was a primary teacher until COVID hit. She was 86 when
I got COVID-19
as a primary teacher,
which was not fun. That COVID-19 that killed me.
Yeah.
Well,
I have to agree with Alicia. I think you're a beacon of light in the world, Michele.
Thank you. I love my life. I really do. I mean, I've had some terrible things happen, but there's always an answer to it. I don't dwell on it because I know I have happy thoughts about it because that's what I'm looking forward to it. I will see my parents. I will see my husband. I will see my children. I will see everybody. The only thing is, I'm wondering if I would. No, I'm not going to say it.
What a joyous reunion it's going to be.
Well, I wonder if Grandma Green, my mother-in-law, will accept me because I was not very nice with her.
I'm sure she will.
I tried, but she.
But it will be a great reunion.
Yeah. She loved her son and just didn't think he was going to get married because she moved to Utah to be with him, and when she came here, he was engaged to me.
Wow.
So,
I think on the other side, they have a lot more information than we do here.
I hope so.
So I think there's going to be a lot more understanding and compassion and grace on the other side with all the ones that we, had a little bit of friction with in life. So
I got along well with her, but at the beginning it was very hard.
Yeah.
But she was a faithful woman, very, very faithful. So,
well, this has been so much fun, Michele and Cami. Thank you guys so much for being here and sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I don't know how you guys found our show, but I am so grateful that you did and that you guys reached out. I got to ask, Michele, is this your first podcast? I know you've done like firesides and stuff and talks, but is this your first podcast?
It is my first broadcast. I was so mad at her when she had to do that because I did not want to do it.
She doesn't know what podcasts are.
So you're still experiencing things for the first time at 90 years old, right?
I don't know. Yeah, it's all new to me, you know.
Oh.
And at my age, I mean, even to look on my phone to see something, I just don't know how to work it.
Yeah.
Things. I mean, it's German to me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, think of Michele, think of this like a fireside, but now everyone in the world can watch it.
Okay.
I'm glad we're telling her this at the end. Not at the beginning.
Every fireside that she gives, she always gets nervous because all of these people, and I says, you're only talking to 2 people. That's it.
True. That's true.
And she's like, oh, 2 people, they're not going to want to hear my story. And I said, but then they share it with the world. So
yeah.
She's like, what?
This is good because now people can hear your story and you're sharing your light and your happiness is a choice with everyone else. Yeah. So you're gonna do a lot of good in the world by sharing your story today.
Will I say thank you, Scott?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
I've loved your podcast. So when you excused yourself, Alicia, I was telling him I've listened for about 9 months to your guys' podcast off and on. And then it was when I heard, who did you say? Randall
Jensen.
Yeah. So I had kind of thought about sending my mom's story to you. And then when I heard him and then he talked about his time in Vietnam and things, I sent it. I was like, no, I need to. And so that's when I reached out. And then probably for the past, 2-3 months, I've gone all the way back to your very beginning and just listened by one. So I've heard your family story and, things like that. And you losing your brother, which I'm sorry about. And things. And so all great stories. And then the one that we're on that she actually was listening to today, I was listening this week. It was, I can't remember the name, but she had adopted a little girl, had a little boy, and then the daughter had ended up passing away.
In a car accident.
Oh yeah.
Marianne, I believe.
Yeah. And it was actually kind of a tender mercy for me because, and I, wanted my mom to hear it because it wasn't so much of the story that there was similar things to it, but it was the baby before that, the mother had, seen her name was Michele and different things. And so to me, it was kind of a tender mercy of, okay, see, it's going to be okay. And because she's been very nervous and things. So yes, and I appreciate, your guys' podcast and the comfort is kind of a funny word, but just the comfort and the inspiration that I find, in listening to people, finding their path and finding reason to continue moving forward in hardships and in good things and in bad of like, okay, see, finding not necessarily the reason of why things happen, but being able to find the lessons in it that, Heavenly Father is hoping to teach and that we can learn. So
He's always with you.
Yeah. So thank you for that.
Well, you both are officially part of the family now. So we love it. And we're so grateful to have you guys here and to share the story. I'm still crying. We're done talking about the story and I'm still crying. It's just been a beautiful, beautiful story. And, yes, tragic and so hard, but you both are just beautiful souls, and you can just see the light of Christ shining through both of you. And it just warms my heart.
That's
So
that's the only way to be.
it is.
Heavenly Father is with you forever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think every day.
Yeah.
Because without him, I wouldn't be nothing. I would be nothing. I would be, what would I be? Nothing.
Yeah.
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 Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, go be with your families.
Okay.
Thank you, Scott. And thank you, Alicia.
Thank you. Well, again, we really appreciate, Cammie reaching out to us and Michele being willing to share your story and everything like that. And we just are so thankful that guests like you have the courage to come out, to try some new things, or maybe even if you've done a podcast before, to do another one. I think it's so needed in this world. We just need as much light as we possibly can get. And we definitely need more shining examples like Michele, who can just continue to choose happiness, to just let that be a choice that we make every single day in every single circumstance. And so thank you so much for sharing your light with us. And thank you to all of our listeners. Guys, leave a comment. Definitely leave a comment for Cammie and Michele. Just let them know like what your favorite part of the story was. And if you, learned anything new, or if you were inspired, it's always so good to hear feedback. So I want to definitely encourage all of our listeners to drop a comment, leave some feedback for this story today, and definitely do your 5-second missionary work. Push that share button and make sure that we get Michele's story out there to the rest of the world, because
it's going to be
this is just going to be beautiful.
Yeah. And if you guys have a story that you want to share, like Michele, go to latterdaylights.com and let us know so we can share your light with the world as well.
Yeah.
So once again, thank you guys for being on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we will see you guys next week when we have another episode for you. So till then, take care.
Take care. Thank you.
See ya.